Hello and welcome. Those of you who are just joining us, we are going to get started in just a minute. I know people are still getting logged on, so just give us a moment. We'll get you logged in. If you want to keep yourself muted and your video off, we are recording this video so that it can be posted on the school website. All right, let's get started since we are at the top of the hour. We'll get started. We're going to be talking about cultivating a positive social media presence for our children today. We are recording this so that others can watch it as the recording. Those of you who are here live can certainly ask questions. I do have the chat box open. If you have any questions, you can throw those questions right in the chat and I will address them as they come in. All right, so let's get started. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Lori Guion. I am the lead coordinator for instructional technology programs at BOCES here in Saratoga. I am also an adjunct lecturer with SUNY Plattsburgh, and I sit on the NICE, which is the New York State Computers and Technology in Education. I'm a board member for them and I do training. I'm also the mom of a 19 and a 22-year-old and the author of the book Smile Learning, Leveraging the Power of Educational Technology. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today has been my life's work for the past 10 years. It's been since my own classroom when I taught sixth grade out in Schuylerville. I taught sixth grade and we went one-to-one with iPads, and I quickly learned that we needed to teach our students how to use this technology in a really positive way. So, that kind of set me on my journey. So for the past 10 years, I've been exploring, learning, and now presenting and sharing what I've learned over the course of the years that I've been learning and doing things along the lines of social media and technology in the classroom. So we're going to start by talking about what life is like in the real world. Here, we're just really going to take a moment and just take a snapshot as far as what life is like for our teens and even for us with technology. So as we think about what happens every minute with social media or what happens online, the eDiscovery group puts together these in the internet 2023, what happens in every minute, and they change every year. If you look past on the prior years, you're going to see that there's some programs or apps that have come onto the scene and then some that have faded off. I'm sure as we move into 2024, there'll be some new ones. For example, Twitter will now be called X. So you'll see some changes as 2024 progresses. But for every 60 seconds in the internet world, these are some of the things that happen. So think about this from your child's perspective. 10.4 million minutes have been viewed on Instagram. Almost 3.5 million snaps have been created on Snapchat. Almost 7 million emojis have been sent. And then we've done 2.5 million searches. And I guarantee that if we again look at the number that you see at the top for ChatGPT, if you haven't explored ChatGPT yet, that is generative artificial intelligence. So it allows you to create content in seconds. It pulls information from the internet and kind of gives you the information that you need. And right now it says 22,831 visits, but ChatGPT was only introduced in November of 2023. So I know that number will be much greater going into 2024 now. And then obviously there's other ones out there, such as Microsoft has Copilot, and Google just announced that they've changed their name for their AI to be Gemini. So we're going to see a big change in some of that that's happening over the course of the year. And it's definitely impacting us as educators in the classroom as far as, looking at what students are able to do, how to ask better questions, what to do to make sure our students are prepared for this boom in what is happening with generative AI. So we're definitely seeing an increase in what happens online, and this has changed and increased every year. As we think about the power that we have in our pockets, we can think about the fact that the cell phone has more computer power than all of NASA when we sent the flight to the moon, which is pretty incredible when you think about what you have in your pocket. I remember my own math teacher saying to me that we won't ever carry calculators. We have to learn to do math without one. But it's so not true now, right? We all carry a calculator in our pocket. But we also carry something that has so much more than just the calculator. It can take photos and videos, and it can connect us immediately to anywhere in the world where we can gather information at any time about just about anything. When we look at the job market, things have shifted a bit there as well. This was as of last year. The World Economic Forum puts this out every year on the top skills that we need in the workforce. And if you look at the colors, it's kind of color coded for you. And you'll notice that a lot of the ones that are really needed, the top skills that are needed in the job market right now, are problem solving. We need our students, our children, to be good problem solvers. And that means giving them the opportunity to kind of think for themselves, to kind of manage what they're doing, to be able to express themselves in creative ways, to be able to communicate. All of that is incredibly important. If you look at that list, only one of them has to do with working with people, but the rest have to do with being able to problem solve, to manage themselves, and even to use a little bit of that technology that we're talking about tonight. The image you see on the right on your screen, that is an AI generated image that I used Canva for. Canva is a program that a lot of businesses use as a paid product, but in the education world, it's free for all education. So students are able to do things just like this, putting in a description. They have to describe what they want to be built, and there are AI programs that will do that. And there's tons of them. This one just happens to be Canva. We also have to think about the shift in our job market with the types of jobs that are there. And if you're curious about whether or not your job is changing, whatever it is that you do, you can go to willrobotstakemyjob.com and you can take a look and see what jobs are more likely and less likely to be taken over by automation or a shift in the way the jobs are done. I did do it for educators. We're safe. There's always going to be a need for that human side in education. But there are some jobs that are starting to kind of disappear, and there are jobs that are always disappearing, right? If you think about the fact that when we first had bowling alleys, we had pin setters. Well, pin setters isn't a thing anymore. We have automation. We have a machine that does that. They used to be lamp lighters. Now we have electricity that we don't need to light lamps. So jobs are constantly changing, and this is probably happening in a much faster pace right now. But that doesn't mean all jobs are going away by any means. But according to some of the statistics online, we're looking upwards of 65% of our students that are currently in our K-12 buildings probably will work in a job that doesn't exist now. And I can say that about my own. When I went to school, I wanted to be a speech language pathologist. And then when I got that degree, I realized, no, I really just wanted to teach, and I became a teacher. But I never thought that a job working with technology and teaching, coding and computer science and social media and digital citizenship, but I didn't know that was a thing. It really wasn't a thing when I was in school. So even I have a job that probably didn't exist when I was going through it. The jobs that they're saying right now will probably be obsolete in 10 years. These are just some of the big ones that they're predicting will be gone. Cashiers, for example, if you think about the fact that when you go into Panera, for example, or anywhere, a lot of times you don't need to converse with the human at all, right? You could just go over and order your item from an iPad, and then it gets sent over, and the order gets filled, and you just pick it up and off you go. So you think about some of those jobs that are becoming automated. Freight and stocking is being taken over by robots and AI empowered ones, especially if you look at the floors of Amazon or Tesla. You could see some examples of that happening right now. Boston Dynamics has a robot that can unload a truck much faster than any humans can, and be able to lift heavy weights, so you don't worry about strain or injury when you're thinking about it from a robot. And this is just some of the ones, and that doesn't mean it definitely will happen. These are just the ones that they're assuming will be obsolete in 10 years. As far as new jobs that are coming, we still need managers, we still need doctors, we still need nurses, we still need people in the healthcare realm for sure, but we're starting to see an increase in software developers and data scientists and IT managers, and people that are interested in data in lots of different ways, information systems and analysts. Any of those, the full stack is a big area that is growing as well. There's so many areas where we're starting to see a need, and we want to make sure that we're pushing or encouraging our students to explore these fields as a potential for going forward. I mentioned I have two kids of my own. I required both of them. They're both in college right now. My daughter graduates in May. My son's a sophomore. And both of them I required in college to take a cybersecurity class as an elective. Neither of them are in cybersecurity as a possible job right now, but that doesn't mean they won't be in cybersecurity when they graduate. But I feel like it's a foundational skill now. It's just as important as media literacy and understanding, how to do some basic math. I feel like these are actual skills that our students need, our children need to be prepared for the world that we live in. My daughter actually fell in love with cybersecurity, and while she isn't majoring in it because she, didn't start there, she's majoring in criminology. She's found that she likes cybersecurity so much she joined the Women in Cybersecurity Club, and she's doing different activities and things with that club within her college experience. So, it definitely is something we want to expose our students to. We want our children to be aware of what these jobs are, how they can function in today's society, and, maybe see the potential of what is to come. There is a dark side to the whole internet as far as we have to think about, you're thinking about all the changes that are happening. We also have to think about the things that are very concerning right now in the internet world. Big one, like I mentioned, with cybersecurity. We know that we have to be very vigilant about not opening things that come through email, especially when you're not expecting them. A lot of those spam emails have gotten very what's the right word? They look real, for lack of a better word. So we have to think about, think before you click is a big thing. There was actually a student who developed an app that if you put it on your phone, before you post something, it would pop up, will come up and say, are you sure you want to post this? And they said it decreased cyberbullying by an incredibly large amount. And so we have to think about that when we get an email. Should I open this attachment? Should I click on it? Should I check the address and make sure it is from the person who says it is? Should I call directly to my bank or my doctor's office, whoever, to make sure that this is a valid email that's been sent? So we need to be vigilant with cybersecurity. Social media impersonation, that is a big concern right now with what's happening in politics. We've seen deep fakes. A lot of them that's what they're called when somebody's being impersonated, but they're not really who they say they are. Tom Hanks came on and did a public statement because his likeness was being used to sell a product. Tom Cruise looked like he was saying everyone should come to Canada through a deep fake. So we have to be careful of what information out there is correct. And speaking of that, we have misinformation and disinformation that we have to think about. There's a lot of information that's out on the World Wide Web that's not true or is biased and maybe has a slant in one way or the other that we have to be concerned about. We should always fact check before we believe. Never forward something without making sure it's real. And sometimes it's very difficult to find that. I mentioned cyberbullying already, but bullying is definitely on the increase. We have to think about how we can help our students understand, our children to understand how to protect themselves and how to come forward if those sort of things are happening. There's that social isolation issue with COVID that we were dealing with that caused a lot of students' mental health to decrease. I saw it in my own kids, where there's all of a sudden there's this separation from seeing their friends every day and doing different things. And they're looking online and they're seeing things that are happening and they feel like they're missing out, right? So we have to think of it from that social isolation part. What are they doing online? And it can also lead to addiction, which we have to be concerned about as well. And there's always privacy concerns. We want to make sure that we're protecting our students' personally identifiable information, that we're making sure that what our students are putting out really shows them in the best light, and that we're thinking about what we're posting and we're protecting ourselves. There are some statistics that came through this past year that I thought were worth sharing with all of you. These come from the Center of Cyber Safety and Education and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They surveyed 4th through 8th grade. So think about how old your 4th graders are, but they surveyed 4th through 8th grade. And what they found were that out of the respondents, 40% of the students they surveyed had connected with strangers. 40%, that's a lot, right? We have to think about every time our children pick up that cell phone and they're doing something online, are they being safe? Are they connecting with strangers? Are they protecting themselves from strangers on the internet? 53% had given out their phone number. We want to make sure our students know that their phone number is private and they shouldn't be sharing it on the World Wide Web or any social media site for that matter. 15% had tried to meet tried to meet in person. Think about that. Think about the risk that they're putting themselves at if they're trying to meet up with somebody they've met online. 78% of the victims were girls. So we also know that we have this concern that we have to make sure our girls understand what they shouldn't do. There's a lot that's happening right now on the internet where we're seeing Um, we're seeing this increase in girls doing things because they think they're going to become an influencer. They're asked to send photos that are maybe a little bit more provocative than they would typically be because they think they're going to get an influencer job. And we have to be very cognizant that that probably isn't the real person if they're asking for something inappropriate like that online. So we want to really think about what is being asked of our children. Speaking of that, FBI put out some information that I wanted to share with you as far as what happened in the in 2023. They had over 5,000 crimes against children. They arrested almost 3,000 individuals. Sexual exploitation of children was the major part of this, and they located and identified more than 5,200 victims. Our children are at risk right now. Sextortion, which I put a link on this, and I'm going to share this slide deck. So you'll have it in the notes that go along with this video. But sextortion is becoming a major problem. We had at our BOCES, we brought in some people from the FBI to teach us about it and talk about it. And they talked about that this is happening a lot where boys and girls are, they think they're connecting with somebody their own age online. Then they start to share information with them, and maybe they send a photo that's probably not appropriate. And then the person they thought they were talking to then tries to extort money from them. And when they can't get that money, that's when they're concerned that these images are going to be put public. There was a story out of, I think it was Michigan, of a teenage boy who actually committed suicide because he was too afraid to tell his parents that that this had happened. So we want to make sure we're talking to our students about that and giving them a safe space to feel comfortable to come to us if something like this happens. There was a whole school in Spain that the FBI talked about where all of the girls had posted pictures on the internet, just real, very basic ones. But somebody had gotten a hold of those photos, changed it using, Photoshop type of images and made it look like the girls were either nude or in compromising positions. And then they try to extort money from them. So we want to make sure that we're protecting our students and explaining why every time you touch the internet, you're putting yourself at risk. So we know our students are on social media, right? We really can't stop that. It's not like you could just take them off social media and say, nope, you're not doing it. I'd love that. But I guarantee even if they're not on, their friend or their neighbor or somebody has taken a photo and put them on social media. So it's really hard to have a zero, footprint online. But it is important for our students to think about ways to protect themselves. And that's why we want to cultivate that safe place between us and our children to come to you. I'll give you a perfect example. When my daughter was in middle school, she had her first cell phone and she had Snapchat. And she came to me because she said she was locked out of her account and she was concerned that maybe she had been hacked. So we contacted Snapchat and they were really good to work with. They were able to shut down her account for 24 hours. Which was very stressful for a middle school girl, right? They think of those snap streaks and they get very concerned about losing contact with their friends for the 24 hours, but it's important to do. After the 24 hours, Snapchat came back and said they can tell that it had been hacked into by somebody in Germany. So somebody in Germany has middle school pictures of my daughter. There's nothing I can do about that, right? That's just out there. And what the person in Germany did was they put multi-factor authentication on my daughter's account. That's why she couldn't get back in. So what they were able to do was shut it down, reset that password, allow her to come in, allowed her to put the multi-factor in so she could take control of her account again. As far as what we're thinking about and what we're seeing with social media, students tend to spend, I think it's about 3.5 hours per day, is our typical average of what students spend or our children spend on social media. But the recent studies have said anything more than 3 hours a day doubles the risk of our students having poor mental health, depression, and anxiety. And we see it every day. We see it in our children that they're much more anxious than their generations before. We're dealing with a lot more depression and anxiety in our schools. We see it in our students every day. And we really want to help our students to realize that they can shut down that social media and they can learn to be in the real world again, and maybe use social media in a much more safe way. They could cultivate that in a much more healthy way to use social media. Again, you'll get a copy of the slide deck, so the links are here so you can read the full reports. They've also found that the relationship with social media has created this poor sleep quality, reduced how long our children are sleeping. creating sleep difficulties and again, that depression. Now, if you think about it, our students, the high school students, they're the ones that need the most sleep, even though we make them get up at the crack of dawn. But any study that you do and you look at our teens, they're the ones that need the most sleep. But now they're getting less because they're on social media. They're playing their video games. They're doing different activities online. They're under the covers, chatting on social sites, whatever it might be. And we want to really think about the effects that it's putting on our children. Less sleep means they're just not going to be able to perform as well as we know that they can. I did get the opportunity to survey students about their digital wellness. This was pre-COVID. I haven't had the opportunity to do it since. I would love to go back and do it again and ask students about their digital wellness. I've had conversations with them, but I haven't done a formal survey with them. But see, these are some of the commonalities that we saw back then that I think would still be the case today. One of the big ones is that students enjoy social media. They do find pleasure in it. We just have to find that balance for them. One of the big things is, we often say, let's just block it. We don't want our students to be involved and we want to make sure we're keeping them safe. But the students say, or our children say, there's always going to be another unblocked site. They're always going to find a way around it. We see that every day. I spend time in IT departments in different schools. I'm in 31 school districts throughout the school year in our area and over the 5 counties in upstate New York here. And it's true that every time that you think you've blocked them from some website, they find another or they find a way around it. And then, students don't look at themselves, or our children don't look at themselves as being addicted to tech. They really think that it helps them. They find ways to communicate and solve their problems. We just have to make sure they're doing that in a really safe way. For example, there is an app called a Woebot, WOEBOT. Don't download it. I'm not recommending it. But what it is it gives the way Woebot is set up is you can tell them how you're feeling, and then it will walk you through different breathing exercises and activities to try to help you out. Sounds great in theory, but what's happening to that data? That now that this student has bared their soul to a chatbot, to artificial intelligence. So we have to think about that part, that the students think that they're using social media or they're using their phones to help them, but we have to make sure that we're helping them or they're using it to help them in a safe way. And this was the big one that came up a lot when I surveyed the students. They really believe that it helps them be more civically minded and exposes them to greater diversity by being online. And we don't want to take that away from our students. We want them to be exposed to the world and to see the potential. We can see the things that our other students are doing. And there are so many teens that are doing incredible things. I push into schools quite often, and I share some of the stories of the teens that are using their social media platforms for good. There's this one teenager from India. Her name is Namia Joshi. She was just a keynote at a major education conference in London, talking about what she does with social media and how she uses it to cultivate a positive change. She calls it Each One Teach 10, where she says you can start the ripple of positivity and you can bring it on to others. There's other students that are using it to talk about environmental concerns, others using it to talk about their gender and their needs for whatever it happens to be. We want to make sure that our students' voices are heard, and we want to make sure that we're opening their eyes to what's happening in the world, and we have that potential to do that. For example, I worked with a group of 7th graders during COVID. They connected with a village in Trojes in Honduras to talk about water, because washing your hands was such a big deal during those years and still is, right? We want to still make sure we're washing our hands. But they learned that this village in particular didn't have any clean water sanitation in their homes or in their schools. So they couldn't wash their hands. They couldn't even they couldn't even drink water that wasn't contaminated. So the students learned about the plight of different parts of the world. They learned about biosand filters and how something as simple as a biosand filter can bring clean water to the village for over 100 years. So they've raised money to actually send one to Trojes. So that's being civically minded, to understand the plight of what's happening in the world, and opening themselves up to be more empathetic. Those are skills we want our students to be concerned about. But how can we as parents help? Like, what can we do to make sure that they're choosing to use it the right way? they're being safe and protecting themselves online. And this is something I've struggled with too. I'm a parent, right? I have two kids. They've been on social media since middle school, and we've certainly had to deal with certain issues that have happened. Tone being the biggest one, right? It's hard to read the meaning behind a text or behind a post, and sometimes it's helping our children to understand that maybe the way you take it isn't the way it was meant to be said. I've had numerous conversations along that lines, with my own children and with children in schools. But we want to make sure that we're here to support our students the best we can. First thing, and I always put this out there, is as a parent, the more of the time our children spend more time at us than they do at school. So we can't rely on school to give them everything. And I'm an educator; I want to give them everything, but we have we have to help them at home as a parent to think about the things that are important to teach our students or to teach our children, to make sure that they know that they can come to us, that you are a safe space, and that you're having the conversations on what they're doing online and helping them through understanding the consequences. A lot of times it has to do with our children don't often see what happens. They don't think about that. What if they do this or post that or like this or tag somebody in something? You have to help them understand that. And because they spend more time with us, that means there's more time that they might be on social media, because it's in an unregulated space over it's when they're at school, it's shut down, right? It's blocked. They can't get on social media during school hours, but as soon as they're home, they can. Or if they're on their phone and they're not on school Wi-Fi, they can. So we have to think about how we're going to protect them in that space and make sure that it's a safe one for them. The other interesting thing, and this came from the Journal of Pediatrics last year, they did a massive study about the health decline or mental health decline that we've seen over the past few years. And what they've found out is that the reason for some of the mental health issues has to do with kind of our parenting, if you want to look at this. And this is decades, so not just us, but the generations before us too. But we've given our students less time to play, roam, and engage in activities independent of us. And if you think about it, when I was a child, and I was a child of the 70s, I would go out the door and I would be like, see you, mom. And I'd come home when I was hungry, right? I'd come home lunchtime, dinner time, whenever it was. She didn't know where I was. She just knew I was down the street somewhere with friends. We don't do that anymore. We walk our children to the bus stop. Less kids walk to school than they used to. We set up play dates where we're still monitoring what they're doing. We're not giving our students the opportunity to kind of figure things out for themselves, and we have to do that. We have to find ways to do that, but still keep them in a safe space, because there's reasons we have play dates and structured events and such. But we want to make sure that our students have some time to figure things out for themselves. It's important for their mental health. So that's the first thing you can do. We also have to think about some of the things we need to know. And this is the first one that I think is important, is we can monitor what our students are doing online. I had a rule with my kids when they were home as teenagers. Now they're in college, I don't do this. But while they were with me, middle school, high school, I had access to everything on their phone. I had their passwords. I could check their sites. I could follow them on everything that they were doing online. But I also was able to set up the family sharing on the iPhone, so I can see what they were downloading and what they have access to. If you have an Android, you can use Family Link. And when both my kids learned to drive, I required them to have Life 360. Not that I wanted to be able to see where they were at all times, but I wanted a way to connect with them if something happened. So if their car broke down somewhere, I knew where they were. And it was just became a safety thing. My daughter, actually, in college, she and her friends all get the app and share with each other when they're going to go out somewhere, just in case somebody loses contact with somebody, they can see where they are and make sure that they're safe. So, it's not sharing your location with the world, but it's keeping it in a way that's within your family or within your close-knit group, to make sure that you're helping each other be safe. Speaking of sharing, we want to think about also what we're searching. So I mentioned that mis and disinformation that we have online. You want to also think about how you can protect your students from searching things, or your children from searching things online. There are ways to set up safe searches within Google, and that's going to protect them from seeing something they shouldn't see on their devices. At schools, those all happen, whether they're a Google school or a Microsoft school. Google puts that, or both of them put that safe search on through our admin panels that we have for Google Workspace for Education or Microsoft for Education. Um, so when they're at school, that's protected, but when they're home with you or they're on their cell phones, you can set some of those regulations as well. But you also want to, if your students or your children are looking at something online, think about the accuracy and the legitimacy of that information. Actually, there was a study done a few years ago, and I haven't looked recently to see if it's still the same, but for a while they were saying that one of the best places to get real information, like actual news, was Snapchat, because it was vetted. Nothing could be posted until it'd been vetted, versus like a Facebook or an Instagram or even Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, where anybody can post anything. It's all a matter of adding that layer of let's check and let's fact source that information. It is difficult to spot fakes, though. And I put a couple of resources here, and I'm going to take you out actually to this first one here called Which Face is Real? This is an actual experiment you can do. And what you're going to have to do is look at the two faces on the screen, and you're going to determine which one is a real face and which one is an AI generated face. Now, I've done these for quite some time, so I'm pretty good at it. I don't get many wrong. Every once in a while I do. But there are things to look at. So I'm going to help you out as you're thinking about seeing things online. If you look at this picture here, for example, it kind of has some fade to it. There's a blurred background. That's more likely to be an AI generated than something where you might see the flaws. So not to say she has flaws, but there's somebody else in the picture, or the hair isn't just perfect. So see, if I pick this, I was right. This was the image on the right was oh, I was wrong on this one. How about that? The image on the right was the real one. So this is one that I would have gotten caught up on. I totally did. I would have guessed the other way around, because this one has the blurred background. This one has other people. So I would say this one is real. So you can see, you can go through and kind of check it out. But sometimes it's really hard to tell which is the real one and which is the fake one. This is a tough one. I don't know. I'm going to go with this one. This was the real one. Yeah, so I still need work too. So we all need work on that. There's a lot it's hard to tell what's real, what's not. MIT has done some research on it, on deep fakes, or how to detect fakes with media. Google Arts and Culture has a fun game you can play where you have to, it's called Odd One Out, where you are given 4 pieces of artwork. One is AI generated, and you have to try to figure out which one. It's hard. It's really difficult to spot those fakes. We have to think about that as we're going through and helping our students understand, or our children understand, that everything on the internet isn't real. The other thing you want to look at is the in-app purchases. And this is something that I know I got burned early on with my kids, because they would click a button, it would buy something. I'm like, wait, we didn't need to spend $2.99 on extra lives on Candy Crush or whatever. But they're all apps need to make money somehow. Typically, they'll do that by putting ads on. So we want to make sure that we're checking what kind of ads are showing up on our students' devices or our children's devices, because we want to make sure and keep them safe. You also want to set some spending limits with your students, and you have the ability to shut off the in-app purchases on your cell phone. So no matter which phone you have, go into your settings and you can change that. The other thing you have to think about, and I don't have it on this slide, but I feel like it's important to point out, is every time you download a free program and you log in, you're giving away some personally identifiable information. Chances are that information is being used. And so they're selling it to whoever, so they can send you some of the targeted ads and information. So I do with students, I'll often ask them, would you rather pay for all of your apps and protect your data, or would you rather download apps for free and sell your data? And they often will say, I'd rather pay. But then when we start talking about all the programs they use that are free, they're already doing the opposite. They're already using free apps, so they're already giving away some of their information. But it's really important that we talk to the students about what they're giving away. Your personally identifiable information, if you've never heard that term, we're talking about your first and last name, your email, your birthday, your phone number, your address. Anything that makes you identifiable to you is what we're talking about there. The more factors you give online, the more you're opening yourself up to risk. For example, I was with a group of fourth graders. Actually, I was 4th through 12th in this one school that I was in. But I was having them use a safe chatbot. So it's called Mundo. It's through the Digital Citizenship Institute. They have this, Mundo means world in Spanish, and the students were able to interact with the chatbot. And I wanted them to practice using an AI tool in a safe way. So we went through what you should and shouldn't do, right? You should not share personally identifiable information. You want to make sure you're asking safe questions and all these kind of things. And right after I finished the lesson, one little girl said, I just told him it's my birthday. And I was like, well, that's exactly what we shouldn't do. We don't want to give information out like that online, especially when we don't know who's on the other end. In this case, it's a chatbot, but we don't want to feed that information in. Same for all of you. If you're using AI like ChatGPT, do not put personal information in. Don't put your children's names. Don't put your names. Just child number one or child number two, whatever. I tell the same thing to teachers, when they're using AI tools to do things for the classroom. Don't put student information in. Make sure that you're protecting the identity of your children. Excuse me. Let's talk cyberbullying. So cyberbullying can happen anywhere online. The big places are social media, text apps, online forums, gaming communities, like Discord is a big place, right? TikTok, Snapchat, all of those places are places where cyberbullying can happen. So anytime your student or your child interacts online, there's a good chance that these types of things can happen. I teach how to protect students from cyberbullying in many schools in the area. And usually when I ask them ways to protect themselves, they can give me about three. The big three are like, just shut it down, tell somebody, or block the person that's bullying you. They're the only three, but literally there's like 10 different ways. I'm going to share some of those on a later slide. But there are ways that we can give our students, our children, a toolkit to make sure that they're safe and that we're protecting them from cyberbullying online. There's a really fun activity I do with these little robots with students, especially sixth grade. That seems to be the sweet spot for the activity, where we talk about when you're being cyberbullied, that it dims the light within you. Where you don't enjoy things as much because you're stuck with this cyberbullying that's happening. And then we teach them different ways to protect themselves so that their light doesn't dim. It gives them that visual to kind of go along with what they're learning as far as cyberbullying goes. And when I ask students, have you ever been cyberbullied, or do you know somebody who has? Just about every hand goes up. So all of our students have been exposed to this in one way or the other. We have to give them that toolkit to protect themselves. Speaking of social media, this is also being looked at by others. So in here I put the information as far as for college, but this is also happening in the job market. There are students who have lost scholarships, lost admittance into schools because of something that's been posted, whether either by them or by somebody else. So you want to make sure that your children are checking, like Google themselves, what's out there, what can other people find about you. If they can't find anything, maybe that's not great. You want to kind of showcase yourself in the best light, because we know we're all connected in some way, but it's better to have none than one that has, maybe some derogatory information or negative comments or things that you don't want anyone to see. So make sure that if you haven't yet, Google yourself, have your students Google themselves, see what's out there, especially as they're getting closer to graduation and they're thinking about, career or college, whatever path they're thinking about. On this slide, there is an article that talks about what you can do to make sure that your social media presence is a positive one. And it's just some different skills to help you help your child. Other things you can do to protect yourself: know the protection features on the websites and the software your students use, especially something as simple as Roblox. You think it's totally safe, but there are social aspects to a program like that. And there have been children that have been exploited because of that information. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your child on everything they're using. Pay attention to the online environments that they're going to. Like I said, I had an open rule with my own kids that I got to see what they were doing. I would get from Microsoft would send me a report for everything my child was doing with Xbox or on the internet. So you can set these rules up to make sure that you're protecting your children. You also want to verify that the apps are age appropriate. A lot of the programs that our students are on are made for 13 or 18 and older. And we're getting these students on or so much earlier than that, just because they say their friends are and all these kind of things. But I used to tell my kids, I don't care if your friends are on it, you'll go on it when I feel you're ready, and I can take it away at any point too. Not that I'm a big proponent of taking things away. I think you have to put guardrails and help them understand it versus just taking it away. Also, think about the privacy policies, read them. I can't emphasize this one enough. Know what you're signing up for when you hit OK. We're all ones that click those click around agreements. We agree to the terms and conditions without even reading them. There's a very funny video on Twitter, or not on Twitter, on YouTube. What was her name? Jenna something, where she talks about like the terms and conditions and people signing away, crazy stuff. But when you think about the privacy policies, talk about it with your children. What data is being shared? Can you turn that on and off? Can you shut off the location trackers? If you do nothing else after this hour, shut off the location trackers. No one needs to know where your child is all the time other than you. So you want to make sure that you're shutting them off for everyone but you. Consider what personally identifiable information you're giving away when you're filling out those forms. Just like on Facebook, don't fill out those things that says, what was the street you lived on? What was your favorite dog? That's all things you tend to put in passwords. They're just fishing for information to try to hack into your accounts. Check your privacy settings often. They often reset after updates, so you want to make sure you're checking them often. And then discuss the concerns of live streaming. What if something goes wrong? What if something happens? Somebody does something inappropriate. You don't want to be posting that live. So you might want to encourage your child, if they're going to post a video, to do it after the fact, not during. Some things about how you can make sure that screen time is being used effectively, because this is always a big question, is how much screen time is too much. And my argument is it depends on what they're doing. If they're sitting and staring, scrolling for hours, that's not good use of their time. But if they're using social media or they're using their technology time to communicate, to be creative, to collaborate, to learn, to think critically about maybe something, that they're concerned about in the civic world, or if they're exploring something, right? Not just exploring, funny dog videos, but they're exploring to learn more about what it would be like to, live in the mountains or versus the city, or they're looking up, information about colleges, whatever it happens to be. If they're using it to use those higher order thinking skills, those things that we want to get those synapses firing in their brains, go for it. If they're just doing it to scroll, or I know my kids were big on watching YouTube videos of other people playing games, that's just a waste of time, right? Not to say they can't do it for entertainment once in a while, but we really want to limit that. We also want to, speaking of that, set those healthy time limits. I'm including on this slide some media plans from the pediatrics group, from Common Sense Media, where you can have a contract between you and the child and your children. Set those rules. I had a rule with my son because he was a big gamer, still is, but he wasn't allowed to touch his phone from, our games really, from Sunday night until Friday afternoon. That way he would get his schoolwork done. Then on the weekends, he could have some time to do it. So that was our agreement. He could have access to his phone, but he couldn't spend hours playing video games or chatting with his friends. We had to limit so that he would do his homework, right? We want to make sure that we set those limits and those agreements, depending on what they need. We also had rules in our house, and I think these are important rules. We had a no cell phone at the dinner table rule very early on. If nothing else, again, do this with your kids. My kids would say when friends would come over to have dinner with us, they would make them leave their cell phones in the other room and say, we have a rule in this house, there's no cell phones at the dinner table. Really, this was a hard one. Cell phones in the bedrooms. I really wish I had done this more with my kids, maybe kept them out of the bedroom a little bit more. But it does make a difference. I think that they can be charged in the kitchen and they can get them in the morning when they wake up. And then shut down those electronics before bed. It's going to help them get to sleep faster. It's going to help them get a better routine. It's going to help them with their balance. So definitely no electronics before bed. That's reading time, right? Do something, some downtime. And then I will tell you, we had a ton of family game nights when both my kids were home. We did some games on devices, like we'd play Among Us or we play Jackbox games, where we can use the internet and different gaming platforms to have some fun. We had Mario Kart races, those are good things to do with your kids to engage in the things that they enjoy. But we also would play offline games, board games. Kids love to play board games. They're begging for it in the classroom, which tells me that they probably would enjoy it with you at home as well. and talk about what games they're playing. Ask questions. When Among Us got really big during COVID, my son invited me to come sit down and he played it with me and he showed me how it works so I can understand what it was about the game that he enjoyed. And the things that Among Us did really well was it fostered teamwork and collaboration and critical thinking and problem solving. And I was like, go for it. This is a good game. Go ahead and play it. You know, but obviously monitor again the amount of time, set those rules. I mentioned I was going to come back to cyberbullying. If you look at this slide, it gives you some different things that you can do. These are the big ones, right? You can delete and stay offline, take lots of breaks. You want to make sure what you're posting is positive. Don't go down that shaming hole, where all of a sudden you're one person says something negative and you say something negative and then it just goes down this rabbit hole. Don't do that. Try to spin the positive as often as you can. Definitely support your child, but make it comfortable for them to come to you. Don't accuse, just ask and listen. Encourage your child to speak up if something is happening. Please, please, please encourage them to speak up. The one thing that a lot of kids do is they'll delete it because they're embarrassed about it. And then there's no evidence. You have nothing you can go against if you've deleted it. It's still out there on the internet. Nothing is ever gone, right? Everything on the internet is there forever. But you keeping that evidence that something has happened is going to help you combat it. You can report anonymously, especially not just especially, on every website. There's a place to, if there's social parts to it, there's a place to report this information. No matter what social media site, no matter what game they're playing, there's a spot. Find it, show your students where they are, and use it if something is happening. On this page, you also have a link to the Stop Bullying website. This is from the government. They give you a whole list of resources, some videos, and other things to help if bullying is happening. This is something we absolutely have to combat. Oh, I didn't mean to go out to the website. We'll just keep going on here. Big ones, just to kind of summarize a little bit, watch for the toxic information that's coming through. There's a lot of negativity online. You can cultivate that. So if you don't respond, you don't like, you don't post on those types of responses, it won't show up. I will tell you, I know the last election was very contentious. I didn't have anything about the election come up on my social media sites. Mine are all teacher stuff, right? I've got it cultivated that none of that's going to show up. So it never got toxic for me. If it got toxic for you, you were hovering, you were posting, you were liking, you were sharing, those kind of things are going to happen, then you're going to get that much more. That's AI at work. That the algorithm is saying, oh, you like this information, let me give you more of it. I mentioned already, temporary photos are not a thing. They're all out there. Like I said, my daughter lost, access to her Snapchat when she was in middle school. And those pictures are out there somewhere. They're not the 10 seconds and they disappear. No, it's there forever. I mentioned already, I'm mentioning it again, just kind of summarizing here, shut off the location services for everyone except for you. They should still have them for you. And be very wary of any secret chat rooms. Like there was Finsta, right? The fake Insta. Watch for those kind of things. Your kids may not be as forthcoming that they have them. And there's a lot of websites. I know when my kids were in high school, there was this big talk of a place where you can go just to put negative comments. That is not somewhere you want your kids to be. Some more resources I'm sharing with you as we kind of end up here tonight. Parents.com put out a really good article on 6 ways to teach your kids to be kind. Osmo, which is a program that's great for the littles, has a way to help you develop empathy in your children, especially for the young. And then Common Sense Education has a whole video and all sorts of really good resources for you and for your child around the power of the words, because we want to make sure that they're spreading that kindness. Again, just to summarize what you can do for your children, talk to them, find out what they're passionate about. They love to tell all about themselves, right? So give them the time to do that, but also talk to them about their screen time. Listen to them when they say they have concerns or they have needs. Why are they feeling so drawn to being on that site? What is it, that draws them in? And can we replicate some of that same excitement on something else? The being bored is a good thing. More inventions happen because we're bored, right? So we want to make sure that we're allowing our children to just be bored, and then work together to create that digital plan. That's really important. Big things to encourage if they're going online. Encourage that creativity. Use those sites for really good things. And there's a whole movement. If you go out to Twitter or any of those places and put in use tech for good, you're going to see lots of really good things that people are doing with their social media presence. So encourage that. Explore things that are of interest to you. If they're really into hand weaving, let's look up hand weaving. If they're really into art, let's look up some really cool things about art. Let's use technology, for the good. Giving you some homework because I am an educator. Read something. All right. So here are some really good reads for you. The first one is a book by Anna Hamanyoun. I've seen her speak several times now, and she's written a couple really good books. She wrote a really good one about boys in their teenage years. That was really helpful for me as my son was growing up. It's called That Crumpled Paper That Was Due Last Week, or something along those lines. She wrote one about girls and social media as well. But this one is one that's just in general about social media wellness. Really great read. The center one, Jennifer Cassatot, is a multimedia specialist up in Canada, actually. She wrote a really good book about social media for educators to think about ways that we can help our students leverage their online platforms in a positive way in the classroom. But she has since written this one about raising our digital leaders for us as parents for our children. I can't recommend it enough. And then finally, I've mentioned Common Sense Education a few times, Common Sense Media. Great website to find out anything you want to know about anything on the internet. You can also see all about different apps, programs, websites, video games, television shows. It has all sorts of reviews and information for you as a parent. If you want to read to your children, if you have young children, I recommend any of these picture books that are on any of these 3 sites. Again, these will be in your resources. There are some really incredible books that have been written by educators and by people in the field about anything to do with the internet. And then finally, again, just a couple other ones from Common Sense Media and Common Sense Education, some information on AI and seeing the things that our students are dealing with now, what's going on with our teens. Dove has you might have seen it at the Super Bowl. They released a commercial about trying to help with the mental health crisis. They have some great resources for you. And then Parents Together is an advocacy site that might help you out as well. All right, so this is the final slide here for you as we wrap up tonight. If you're on Facebook, I highly recommend that you follow Officer Gomez. He is a school resource officer who posts videos and short clips and information about social media and our students, but he's living it, right? Because he's in our schools and he's doing this every day. If you want to watch another video on social media, he did a social media 101 class for families, which I've linked here as well, and you could also find on that Facebook site. So that is everything I'm going to share with you tonight. I thank you all for joining or for listening on the recording. Like I said, that link will be available to you with the video, be giving that to your school to be able to post on their website. I haven't seen any questions come through, but I'll keep the recording on for a moment if there is a question and you'd like to come off camera and ask it. Otherwise, have a great night and good luck, and know that we can be good partners with our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.